everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're asking the question, is winning all the time a good thing? Mainly, is it a good thing for your child's football development? So what we mean by this is, if your child is in a team who are consistently smashing other teams to pieces, winning all the time, no real challenge, is that better than being in a team that maybe does lose a lot more, but your child's improving a lot more as a result of that, or as a result of having a better coach? We'll give you an example. So we played a tournament, a friendly tournament, it was a couple of years ago now. There was a team there who, I think they ended up winning it, and the term well-drilled kept being used. They're well-drilled. Have you seen that team in orange? Really well-drilled. And it bothered us a little bit, because when we watched them, great to watch, young kids, and they were following instructions. They had a coach on either side of the pitch that were basically telling them what to do and when to do it. And they had these, I guess they'd worked on some sort of phases of play, so they knew that from kick-off they'd pass it back to this player, who then would pass it to that player. And to the naked eye, you'd think, that good team. And they were a good team. But to us as coaches, no player from that team stood out at all. They were just doing what they were told to do, which is not the best thing for a child's development. We talk about decision making. They were told the decisions to make. That is not the best thing for a young footballer. If your child is in that sort of team, then you probably need to ask questions about whether or not it's going to be the right thing for their longer term development. It'll be the right thing for a trophy cabinet maybe, but once they get into high school and things start to take a bit, get a bit more serious, if you're wanting them to develop more and progress as far as they can in football, being in those teams where a manager or coaches are constantly telling them what to do and when to do it, they're going to fall to bits longer term in terms of their overall development. They're not going to be the player that they could be. The other thing with this is, if they are in a team who maybe the managers are great, the coaches are great, they leave it to the kids and the kids are allowed to express themselves and do what they want to do, but they are constantly beating teams and by significant margins, that can also be detrimental to your players' longer term development. You may want to think about joining a team where there's going to be more of a challenge. Maybe your player will be playing against players that would challenge them more. That's probably going to be better for them as well. Not always, but certainly a lot of the time. So there's two different things there. But parents can be conned into thinking that a team is better for their child because they're seeing the scores on social media or whatever. That team's won again. That team looks good. They've won again. They win all the time, that team. You can be conned into thinking that means that it's good coaching or that it's actually going to be good for your child's development, when oftentimes it might not be. It might not be the best place for their development at all. Would you rather be losing every week but your child is getting better individually, or would you rather win every week but your child isn't improving? And that's something that you and they need to think about. Now, this isn't easy. It's not easy to get young kids to understand that, yeah, you lost that game, but you did so well and you've got better week on week. It's hard because they do think about the result. But that's where we need to get on board, and we need to do our bit as parents to convince them that actually this is the best thing. And let's have it right. Kids can be really upset about the score of a football match, but the next day they can barely even remember who they played, let alone the score. So it's for that moment in time, that Saturday morning or Sunday morning, whatever, where they are distraught because they've just lost. But then a few hours later, it's forgotten. So us as parents, if we can get on board with helping them understand that, let's not worry about the score, let's worry about you improving. Were you better than last week? If so, why? Because of this, this and this. If not, what could you have done differently? Or what will you do differently next week? And just get them to understand that it's not about competing against that other team. at a junior level, it's competing against themselves, being better than themselves. Then the scoreline doesn't matter anymore. What matters is, have they got better? Were they a better teammate today? Did they work harder today? Was their passing better? Was their decision making better? Whatever it might be. But if you can get them to understand that playing against themselves is better than worrying about the scoreline, you will be in a position then when your child is ready for some serious improvement. What you need to watch out for as a parent in a team that is winning all the time, for one of the reasons that we mentioned, either they're maybe in a league that's just not good enough for them, maybe the team is just it's got all the best players across a certain part of the city and they're just smashing teams to bits, or you've got the coaches and managers that are just giving them everything, joysticking. In other words, playing the game for them, giving them all the instructions, telling them what to do and when to do it. If you're in one or both of those situations, then, you're in those situations but you don't quite know it yet, the things to watch out for are stuff like, is your child and the rest of the children being put into set positions all the time? If that's happening, that's probably because the player's coach thinks that that's their best position and the other children's best position. In other words, he or she's going out to win the game because they're putting the players into their best positions, in inverted commas, because, as you know, we don't believe in positions at young ages. It's a nonsense. But if you've got a player that's pretty good in defence and is always playing, or she's always playing defence, then you can be rest assured that manager's probably got winning on their mind, because otherwise they wouldn't care. They'll allow them to play in a different position every week just to make sure that they're developing as a footballer. So if they're in set positions all the time, that is definitely a red flag. You want your player to be playing a multitude of positions, even goalkeeper, because you want them to become a footballer, not a right back, left winger, attacker, defender, whatever, at such a young age, because it is a nonsense. And we'll talk about this in another podcast, but certainly set positions is a red flag. Sideline behaviour is another red flag. As I mentioned, the team that we played in that tournament, they had a coach on either side that were basically telling the kids what to do, when to do it. Their children, the defenders weren't allowed to go past the halfway line. The attackers weren't allowed to leave a certain area of the field. There was just no chance of expression. The sideline behaviour can be a big, big red flag in terms of, are you in the right team? Is your child in the right team? If they're constantly telling their children what to do, when to do it, that isn't good for their development. Even if the team is winning all the time, that isn't good for their development. So again, you might need to make a decision on, do we go and look for somewhere that is a bit more child for improvement focused, development focused, shall we call it. Substitutes are the same kids being sub all the time. Again, going back to the position thing, it's sort of hand in hand. If the same kids are being substituted all the time or always starting on the bench, it might be that coach is out to win games and not really focus on the development. If your child is certainly on the substitute bench all the time, then that goes without saying. You need to maybe think about where you can go, where your child's going to be allowed more game time. But substitutes can be a big again, red flag in terms of, okay, yeah, this guy or girl certainly just out to win games. They're just starting the best team all the time. And so I maybe need to think about what I'm doing. Language of the coach as well. Are they using the word I a lot? I'm really disappointed in you. I think you could give me more. I think you should have done better. I made some good substitutions today. My tactics were blah blah blah. If they're making it all about themselves, again, you can probably come to the conclusion that their focus is going to work on a Monday morning to tell their pals that they beat a under-9s team 10-0 at the weekend, which is not what we're after. It should be about the kids. They should be using you a lot more. You did great today. What could you do better next week, do you think? If they're making it more about the children, asking them questions, challenging them in the right way as well, challenge them to improve and challenge them to be better than last time, that's a great environment. If it's all about me, then yeah, it's probably not going to be great, and you can probably come to the conclusion that your child's in a team with a manager or coach that's just focused on the scoreline and not their individual development. There is a balancing act here. As parents, we want our children to be happy, we want them to be in winning teams and so forth, but just take a step back. It's particularly at the younger age, it is about the individual, and people will argue, yeah, but no, football's a team game. We're not saying it's not. What we're saying is that if your child is giving up their time and you're giving up your time, then you need to see improvements. Fun is developing, and developing is fun. So if your child's not developing, then that's not going to be fun longer term, especially when they maybe go to maybe go to high school or go to a different team and find that they've wasted so many years not developing, that they're now in a position where all these kids that they're playing against are just so much better than them. Then that's a problem. In the younger age group, it's about understanding that they individually need to get better, but we also need to help the team. And that's not a hard thing to achieve. It really isn't. So have a think about that. Maybe just reflect on those things that we've mentioned, those red flags to watch out for, because winning all the time is not always a good thing. Is it better to join a team that loses more but focuses more on the individual development of each player? That is a question for you guys if you're in this situation. Hope that helps. As always, like we always say, just drop us a message, get in touch if we can help at all, and thank you very much for listening.